Okay then. Okay, hope you're enjoying the show, and I'm ready to interview my next artist. We welcome all styles of music on the show. We support independent artists and musicians. I'm joined by Alison Craig, who goes by the artist name AC Scott. So AC Scott's joining me. A very good day to you. How are we today?
Yeah, great. Thank you very much for having me on the show, Dan. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, pleasure's all mine. First question, just wanted to take it from the beginning. How did your musical journey begin? Including, how you picked up your first instrument and, deciding to realize that you're going to take this seriously.
Well, I was dragged to a piano at the age of 5, against my will, obviously. It was very much you're learning the piano. And I'm really glad that my folks did that because I didn't enjoy it for about the first couple of years. And then I heard my dad playing boogie woogie, and I thought, oh, then the lights went on. I thought, now that sounds like fun. So I've always been a piano player and always been really keen on music, but it wasn't. I didn't end up as a singer-songwriter until 2 years ago. I've had quite a different journey through life. But it was always about the music, I think. And I wasn't great at school. So, I was out of school, like just 16th birthday, out the door. And I worked in a record shop. Then I was a backing singer for a while, and not in a big band, just a kind of gigging band. And anyway, eventually I ended up in radio. And when I ended up in radio, I thought I'd found my thing because I absolutely loved it. It's as you get to sit in a room and talk to people and play music, and it's just the greatest fun. So I did that for a number of years, and part of that was I started doing a bit of telly. I worked for various different television stations. Again, I did a lot of documentaries on bands and things. I was on tour with Simple Minds for 2 or 3 days in Spain, doing a documentary about them, and had a great old time. Ended up working for the One Show, and at that point, I had a really big health problem. My lungs collapsed, and I was diagnosed with a degenerative lung condition. And I thought my life was over essentially. So I had to stop work that minute. I had no choice, and had a couple of lung operations, and my life changed essentially. My um, broadcasting career had to stop there and then, and so I began to write, and I wrote a book firstly, and it was picked up by Orion, and I ended up writing a trilogy of books, fiction. But they were very light and fluffy, not really how I was feeling inside. It was kind of antithesis of how I was feeling. And the first book was picked up as a potential film during lockdown by Jason Connery, Sean Connery's son, who phoned me out the blue and said, I love your book. I'd like to make it into a film. Do you want to write the screenplay? And I was like, is this April the 1st? Is this a joke? But it wasn't a joke. So we worked together on Zoom during lockdown, working on the screenplay. And whilst we were doing it, it was very visual, the whole thing, obviously, talking about how you write a screenplay. It was fascinating. But I kept hearing these little themes music wise. And so I would record onto my phone on my voice notes just a little bit of piano and send it up to Jason and say, I can imagine the characters, being in this scene and this kind of vibe in the background. And he was like, are you playing that piano? And I'd say, yeah. And he said, well, it's quite unusual. I've never worked with a screenwriter that did that before. So when the screenplay was done, I thought, well, maybe I'll explore this, because it was always having been playing the piano. Um, I went on a songwriting weekend in the west coast of Scotland, and that's what lit the spark. So somebody there said to me, yeah, you've got a pretty good ear there, Alison. You should pursue this. So I did write my first song, which became my first single, which is called Sometimes. And at that point, it fell into the ears of two people. One was Andrew Rollins, who's an Emmy Award-winning producer in Hollywood. Um, and the other was Kate Hyman, who's one of the best known A&R people in the world. She signed like Beth Orton, Moby, and the New Radicals. She's got a history that you wouldn't believe. So they became my team from day one. And, having nearly died, all of a sudden, here I was writing songs and working with these extraordinary individuals. It's really been quite a jaw-dropping story, actually. And part of my health issue is I can't fly. So when I was chatting to Andrew Rollins on Zoom, he said, you really should come over to LA and let's get into the recording studio. So, do you know what? I thought, you're a long time dead. So I sailed to the States. I took a boat, took me 7 days, and then I rented a car in New York and drove it to LA, which is 5,000 miles. Stayed there for about 10 days, worked with him in the studio, and then drove back, obviously, to New York, dropped off the hire car with 10,000 miles on the clock. It was unlimited mileage, I'd like to say. I was very happy about that. And then sailed back to the UK yeah, and that's where it sort of started to go a bit berserk, actually. Yeah.
Wow, that's a musical journey there. It's taken you to where you are now. Thanks for sharing that, because you're busy promoting a brand new single called Highlands. And
Yes.
what can the listener expect from, this new single? And am I correct? It has a connection to Scotland.
Yes, well, I was born and brought up in Aberdeen, which is the northeast of Scotland. And um, the actual theme of the song is about parents and children, really, and how as we grow older, in the eyes of our parents, we're always 4 years old. They're probably tempted when we're 35 to say, have you cleaned your teeth tonight? So it's about that way that they always see us as children. But as we separate naturally from them, and we develop our own lives, our own families, our own careers, we don't see them perhaps as often as we used to. So it's about that journey that we all have about, our parents aging and perhaps noticing between visits, that there's changes in how things are. And ultimately, it's really about. I lost my mum during lockdown she had Alzheimer's and she was in a care home. So I know that's been very well documented in, journalism and television and printed journalism. But it was my personal story about it. And I didn't set out to write the song, but it was just something that was in there that I needed to deal with, really, the loss of my mum. And I sat down one day and it just came out. It just came out. So it's very personal. And yeah, it was the hardest thing I've ever done to write that song, but that's what it's about.
Again, thanks for sharing that. And the new single, Highlands, is one of the lead tracks from your new album, Out of the Blue. How many tracks are on this album? And I say, like you made this album. Did it was the development take quite a while to get like your happy, your satisfied final result?
Yeah, I mean, I never thought when I started writing songs that there would be an album. I was just writing a song, then I was writing another song, then I was writing another song. But then they kept coming, and it seemed to be the natural thing to put them into a collection. So it wasn't, as I say, none of it was planned. I didn't sit down at any point and think, today I'm going to write a song about. They just appeared as if, by magic. I know that sounds a bit mad, but literally, um, if I'm driving the car, I quite often get an idea, or just maybe a few words, maybe a line, something that just resonates, and I think, oh, that's something come from somewhere. So I'll pop it into the voice notes of my phone, or where my piano is. I live on the northeast coast, and I can see the sea out the window of the cottage. So I just often just sit there playing the piano, and just again, I just go into this kind of state of I don't know, you're not really thinking about anything. And then these ideas just sort of arrive. And when I when my dad passed away, I didn't play the piano for 2 years. And I realized then that there's a massive connection between the piano and whatever it is that's going inside me. Um, yeah, every time I looked at the piano or sat down, I just broke down. So um I think that the culmination of all that emotion is coming out in these songs. And in on the vinyl album, there are 13 songs. That's sort of maximum you can fit on, keep the vinyl good quality. And in the digital album, there's 15 tracks.
Thank you. And did you manage to play? You mentioned piano there. Did you manage to play any instruments on your album as well, recording?
Piano all the way through. That's my thing. If I don't play the piano every day, I go into some sort of withdrawal. I do play a number of other instruments, but none of them on the album. No, I mean, when you're surrounded by, the kind of musicians that I, I was lucky enough to be surrounded by, some of the best guitar players in the world, really, and drummers, bass players, just sitting there listening to them play. I just sit there with my face practically splitting open. I'm smiling so much. Just a
And
privilege to play.
one track that caught my attention on the album, because I am a DJ myself, is Party People. What's the background behind that track?
Well, I was or am a massive Nile Rodgers disco. I love that kind of music. I always have. I find it really uplifting if I'm down. That's the music I put on to dance to just bring me back up to happy. So it's just been a genre that I've always loved. And I'm not that technical when it comes to my recording stuff, but I do have it's quite an old-fashioned keyboard actually. It's an old Roland, but it does have a very basic beat in there. So I thought normally I just start with the piano and the vocal. That's all, and I send that to whoever I'm working with, and they'll start to build the track. But with Party People, I started with the beat and it just came to me. It just came, again, I just sound lunatic, but it just came to me. I just had visions of, I used to do a lot of clubbing. I was a real, party girl. So it just reminded me of those days when you would go to a club and you'd be there till 4 or 5 in the morning. You'd go home, you get 2 hours sleep, you get up, you have a coffee, and then you go to work. It's that kind of feeling of you were with your tribe, from, midnight till 4 in the morning. You were doing whatever you wanted to do, drinking, smoking, just having a brilliant time with these other people that you were in the same world as you were. And then you would all just go off and go back to your day jobs, do whatever you had to do, and but knowing you would all get together again and have a brilliant, brilliant night. So it was picked up by a guy in New York called Basie Bob Brockman, who is a big DJ producer across there, and he's done a drum and bass mix, which you would probably love if you're a DJ. Because yeah, again, it just gives it a completely different complexion, and that is going to be the next single.
That's great. And when we're talking about, your music, sometimes do you find ideas happen to you or come to you when you least expect it? Sometimes it just flows.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. As I say, driving the car is a time, when actually, if I'm sitting in the car with my partner and I suddenly go, "Oh, can you pass me my phone?" And he's like, "Alison, you're driving the car." So yeah, quite often, I don't know where it comes from. I really don't. And I've spoken to the guys that I work with, and I say, "God, I've got another song," and they just say, "Look, just don't stop writing,
Mm.
because one day it'll stop, and until it stops, I just keep recording." And yeah, so I'm looking forward to the future now. I've got obviously this album to tell the world about, um, then to play live with it later in the summer, and then get into the recording studio and start on the next album.
Okay, got time just to chat about one more track on the album called Obsession as well. Can you
Okay.
share with me what this song is about?
Well, that song is about, if you are with somebody, if you've ever been with somebody and you can't see the wood for the trees, what you absolutely adore them. It doesn't mean they adore you back, but everything that you do is to do with them. Every waking moment you're thinking about them, every nuance of, it doesn't matter how they're treating you, you're just obsessed with this person. And that was the sort of starting point for that because I think we've all been there, the love is blind thing, when you probably know it's not very good for you, but that doesn't change the way you feel, just this complete focus on this person, whether they return the love to you or not, it doesn't change the way you feel.
This has that nice sentiment to it, that song. And I must ask, do you have any dates where you're performing, like any shows or gigs that people can come and see you at
Well, my
yet?
vinyl's coming out the middle of June, a blue vinyl, which I'm excited about, and that's when I'll be doing a couple of album launches then, and the dates will be on website or on my social media, which is at AC Scott Sings,
Oh,
and my website is acscott.co.uk. So the live dates, as soon as they're confirmed, will be up there.
The live sign-ins, they're really good fun, aren't they? Like when you go to like the record shops, the sign-ins, when people queue up and get to meet the artist in person.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's the greatest thing about sending a song out into the world because everybody hears it differently, according to their life, their experience. And to meet people and and talk about it and how it affects them is fascinating and so rewarding.
Agreed. Do you have a website or any social media which is preferable where people can find out more about your music and
Yeah. My website is acscott.co.uk. Instagram, TikTok, all that malarkey is AC Scott Sings. And you that get, pointed in various directions from there. So yeah, that's a good starting point.
great. Well, joined by Alison, known as AC Scott. That's your musical name on today's show. Very nice speaking with you again, and best of luck with your new singing album as
Thanks.
well.
Thanks, Dan. Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet
Appreciate your
you.
support. Thank
Thank you.
you.